The San Diego Padres could actually trade away one of their starting pitchers. Dylan Cease has been thrown out there on the market. They're looking to kind of add some long-term assets. This was long thought to be the idea around a lot of their expiring deals, including Michael King, Dylan Cease, and Luis Arraez. But now we get substantiated rumors, John Heyman and several others reporting that 4 teams have at least been reached out to by the San Diego Padres about the availability of Dylan Cease and what the return could possibly be. Now, as far as the San Diego Padres, they're currently in playoff positioning. They look like they could very well finish in the wild card spot, whether or not they trade away Dylan Cease or not. Now, the Giants have got to be in consideration here for one of those final wild card spots as well. Nothing is in stone as of yet, but the Padres are at least letting it be known that they're looking to retool their roster here at the deadline. We knew that money was going to be a bit of an issue around this season for the Padres after their payroll last season was expected to be lower than what it is this season. This season, just by natural raises, the salaries were going to go up before they even added a single free agent to their team. So they were going to look to offload a little bit of money here during the season, and now it looks like they might finally go out there and do so. John Heyman also denying the reports out there that say Marcell Ozuna, the camp anyway, between the Atlanta Braves and Padres had spoken about Ozuna, basically squashing those rumors as well. So no shortage of San Diego Padres rumors this afternoon. We also get some rumors about the Chicago Cubs and their pursuit of a starting pitcher, an ace caliber starter for their rotation. Video that we posted about an hour ago stated that Mackenzie Gore had at least been catching the eye of the Chicago Cubs front office, and they had reached out to the Washington Nationals about his availability and were looking to acquire him before the deadline. Now, of course, he's got 2 years left of control after this season, so you basically get 3 pennant races with him. You're all in on this season for the Chicago Cubs. You bring in Kyle Tucker. You're not looking to try to win in 26-27. Would be nice if they stick around for those years, but you're looking to win this season. And bringing in Mackenzie Gore helps accomplish 2 things. One, helps them win this year and gives them an ace at the top of that rotation for a couple years thereafter. And who knows? Maybe they get an extension done or sign Kyle Tucker in the offseason. Same thing with Mackenzie Gore. Maybe they sign him to a long-term extension. But this is a team that's willing to spend this offseason. They're willing to spend during the year. And I would not be surprised if they're out there for some controllable starters. Cabrera from the Marlins, Keller from the Pirates, Ryan from the Twins, Gore from the Nationals. Those are the names that I expect to be thrown around the Chicago Cubs clubhouse here as we get closer to the trade deadline. But be sure to hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Welcome in, Doc Ghost. Been a minute since I've seen you, but we appreciate you joining us this afternoon. Watch a little bit of the day baseball games out there today. A lot of great baseball out there. Tigers continue to have their issues offensively since the break. Well, honestly, even before that. And now they're going to have to start looking in their rearview mirror. You look back to, say, a week before the All-Star break, you'd say the Tigers are going to run away and hide with the AL Central. Well, that's proving to be a little bit tougher. Guardians aren't fading away as of yet. And there is reason for hope anyway in Cleveland to not only win the wild card, but now win the division. With the struggles at the Tigers at the top, Tigers are certainly going to have to make some additions here at the deadline to stabilize that organization. But we're going to get into some trade talk here this afternoon edition of the MLB Hot Stove Daily. We're going to get into what a trade package would look like from the Chicago Cubs to bring in Mackenzie Gore. We'll talk about Dylan Cease and what would actually be interesting to the Padres as far as a trade package for him. So, buckle up, hit that like and subscribe, and let's dig in. We'll begin talking about some of the trade ideas that have been thrown out there by a lot of you guys publicly, both on my channel and on Baseball Trade Values. I see you guys actually dropping my name in your comments on some of those trades that you do post on the site. But I do appreciate that. It makes it a lot easier for me to kind of filter through some of these decent trade ideas. But looking at their featured trades, we'll start there first. Mitch Keller to the Cubs gets them a controllable starter. You trade away Owen Casey, Moises Ballesteros, and Christian Franklin in this deal. That's not a bad trade. I think Isaiah Kiner-Falefa is most likely going to end up with the Giants. They've been the one team that's been connected to him. But I get the utility, infielder, availability of a guy like Isaiah Kiner-Falefa in case Shaw has his issues. Casey immediately becomes a starter for the Pirates. Not a bad trade overall. I'd still hold out for more if I'm Pittsburgh because, again, controllable starters, let alone controllable starters of his caliber, are few and far between in this trade market. You're going to have to overpay to get them. So maybe you throw in a Triantos to really overpay to get that deal done. But, overall, not a bad starting point for a trade. Cedric Mullins, Felix Bautista to the Dodgers. Solves a need in the outfield for them. And gives them a closer, which they really do need right now with the injuries that they have and more injuries coming seemingly every day for them. You trade out Conforto in this deal. I don't really like that for the Orioles. They're not looking to take on your contracts, even though it's an expiring deal. They're not looking to pay down the Michael Conforto deal. You guys can deal with it just fine if you're the Dodgers, and DFA him if you're really that worried about him. Emmett Sheehan being the big piece that they would be getting. Love that piece for the Orioles there, and then a top prospect in Eduardo Quintero. Overall, value is fairly close, but again, deadlines mean you're going to have to overpay if you're the buying team. So, not a bad deal, but I'd see you'd still probably have to add one more piece to it. Let's go ahead and make a trade, though. We're going to go ahead and start with Dylan Cease, since that's kind of the subject of the hour, with John Heyman breaking the news anyway that 4 teams were in contact with the Padres about Dylan Cease, and we'll start with those New York Yankees. Now, as far as Dylan Cease goes, his ERA looks a little bit unsightly, but when you dig in on his numbers a little bit, he's been the quote-unquote unluckiest starting pitcher in Major League Baseball this year. His Sierra rating is around 3.15, I believe, 3.6, somewhere in there, whereas his ERA, I think, is hovering around 4.85. But, had a decent start today for the Padres. We'll get into his start today here in a minute. But what would it cost for a team like the Yankees, who is looking for controllable starting first, but would still go after a guy like Dylan Cease, who they did have interest in a year and a half ago? So let's say we go after Dylan Cease here first. Cease's value right now on the market. Where is he? There he is, still at 10.7. That's impressive. Now, the Padres are said to be looking for a controllable outfield bat in return, so keep that in mind. You might be thinking controllable starter. They're looking controllable bat for their outfield first, so keep that in mind. Where could they go? Spencer Jones would immediately be the first name that comes to mind. I think the Yankees would be very hesitant to give him up unless it was a one-for-one trade. Honestly, I think that would be fairly close, and I think it might be enough to get Dylan Cease out of San Diego, but I'm not sure the Yankees would be willing to part with him, even though it might be enough to get a guy like Dylan Cease for your staff. Yankees are all about winning, yes, but I'm not sure they'd give up the future of Spencer Jones for a half a season or 60 games worth of Dylan Cease. Schlitter, as far as a starting pitcher, could be a nice ballast, but again, they're looking for a controllable outfielder. They already had Trent Grisham. He's not a controllable asset anyway, and there's nobody else that really fits here. So the only way that would really happen is if you included Spencer Jones. Again, controllable outfield bat. One-for-one trade, that would probably be what it would take to get it done. Do I think the Yankees end up offering this? Probably not. So let's look at some of the other teams here. Controllable outfield bat. Keep that in mind. We go to the Cubs. Now this is a trade I could see happening. The controllable outfield bat for me, they've been looking at 2 different outfielders here. Owen Casey and Kevin Alcantara. They're looking to trade one, not both of those guys, for a starting pitcher. So I think Casey would be the guy that the Padres would prefer to go after. So you trade Casey to the Padres. Dylan Cease comes back the other way. And then I think the Cubs, even though I think this trade might get it done, I think just to overwhelm the Padres to make sure you win the sweepstakes here, I think you have to put in one small piece. And we're talking small. We're not talking a big asset here. So we're talking maybe a young starting pitcher, Nazir Mule. Bit of an overpay? Absolutely. But honestly, it's a moderate overpay according to the site. I would do that trade if I'm the Cubs. You're all in this season. You already made the big trade, overpaying to bring in Kyle Tucker. You're all in. I mean, all in means all in. You don't give. Damn the torpedoes, as they say. But Owen Casey would be the fixture of this trade for the Padres, and you get a future asset lottery ticket just to kind of round out the deal and overcome the other offers that the Padres, I'm sure, will be getting for Dylan Cease. Let's do another one. Red Sox were another team that had been connected to Dylan Cease. What would it take for them? Now, of course, they do have interest in Jarren Duran. Now, if that's the trade, that's a much bigger deal. Both teams are considered playoff contenders this year. Padres don't have a lot of prospects that they have to deal anyway. And they're not going to trade Salas or DeVries. They've made that very clear so far. Dylan Cease goes to the Sox. Duran goes to the Padres. Now, just with those two as a starting point here, obviously you can see we're well beneath the value here. Is it even reasonable that the Padres could get there? Well, if you included Salas, sure. But you're not trading anybody else here that's on the Major League roster. Morahone would be an interesting piece for the Red Sox, but that's not happening. Gavin Sheets, but again, that's only 6.5. Say you included 3 of those guys. That roughly adds up to 20. 20 does not equal 37. So a trade that sends Jarren Duran back the other way, highly unlikely. But again, they're looking for a controllable outfielder. Let's look at the Majors roster first for an outfielder. And they have plenty of them. Jarren Duran, Roman Anthony, Abreu, Yoshida. Cedon is also here as well. I think he probably is listed as a second baseman first. But even his value is at 47. You're not getting any of those guys. Wilyer Abreu still at 43. You're not getting there. So there's not really a controllable outfielder that fits here. So if that's truly the ask, the Red Sox are probably an unlikely option. The last team that was mentioned as a fit for Dylan Cease was the New York Mets. And I think this would be exactly what the Mets would need here at the trade deadline. And they have controllable outfielders that they can deal. Now, are they at the Major League level yet? Not quite. But let's start there. Let's start with the majors guys that are in the outfield that they might be able to deal. You're not trading Soto. I doubt they would trade Taylor, and he doesn't really add up to any value here anyway. Marte does nothing. Winker does nothing. McNeil does nothing for this trade. But let's expand it. If you go to your prospects, Drew Gilbert, I think, would draw a lot of attention from the Padres people. Clifford, I think, would be another guy that would draw some attention. But again, the Padres are trying to compete this year. So if you did send Clifford, you'd probably have to include a Major League asset going back the other direction. So what would be around, say, a $3 to $5 million valuation for the Mets, excuse me. We want all majors, $3 to $5 million. Okay. You're not getting Alonso, obviously. Acuna could be an interesting piece. Mauricio's a little bit rich for this deal. Jose Siri could be a nice piece. Honestly, that could be your stopgap outfielder for now. And then you have the future of Clifford. Mets would have to go out there and get another 4th outfielder to me, but this trade gets you close. I think you probably have to do a little bit more value in this deal, though. Again, probably looking at another 3-ish to finish it off. So you do Aracena, 19-year-old starting pitcher. So you get 2 controllable assets and an outfielder to take over now. Defense first, glove first player in Jose Siri. Honestly, I say no to this deal if I'm the Padres. I'm not getting enough big talent back, especially when I'm in a wild card race and I'm looking for a controllable asset on a big league roster or could immediately come onto the roster. So let's take out the Mets. The last team that wasn't necessarily in John Heyman's article, or in his mentions anyway, but has been connected to pretty much any starting pitcher out there, and that's the Toronto Blue Jays. Now, I think he'd be a significant improvement in a playoff rotation for them. I think in a playoff rotation, he probably starts one of the first 3 games of a postseason series, And in that case, it makes sense for the Blue Jays to make that addition. So what would they have to give up? Again, we're looking outfielders. All right, you could go Alan Roden. You could go Lukes, Luperfido, Varsho. He's just about to come back to the big league level. Varsho might be an interesting piece as far as the major leaguer that goes. Barger, I don't think, is going anywhere. Luperfido might be an interesting piece, though. Maybe go for Varsho first. And then just kind of round out the deal. You're looking for, what, another 10 valuation here? Not too much really fits at the top here. You could double dip in the starting pitcher department and get King, who has a nice future, and Rojas. So basically you're getting a controllable outfielder and 2 starting pitchers that you can hope on. That's not a bad deal because I think Varsho, when he's right, represents an improvement for the Padres. I don't know. You guys tell me in the chat. What do you guys think of that one? I'd still probably prefer the Cubs offer with Owen Casey, especially if I'm targeting an outfielder. But this deal is not far, far behind. I'm going to go ahead and post it anyway because I think it's a decent deal. All right, let's go ahead and do another trade here. Some of the other rumors that we're having over the last 24 hours are about Mackenzie Gore and his availability from the Washington Nationals. What would the Cubs, whoever the team that was connected to him the most over the last 24, 48 hours, what would they have to give up to get an ace in Mackenzie Gore? Well, Nationals will start there. Cubs. What is Gore's value? I think it's around 70 if I remember correctly. Right at 70. You go to the Cubs, you're going to have to give to get. All right, so I think Cade Horton probably is your first piece. Ballesteros becomes your second. That gets you to 40. Rojas probably becomes your third. And then one of the 2 outfielders, Casey or Alcantara, becomes your 4. Triantos could also be a part of this deal. Honestly, you might even have to do all of that. Here we go. Say you do Triantos and Wiggins. That's a big return. Nationals send you Finnegan just to kind of wrap up the deal. Josh Bell doesn't really do much for you. He's hitting well, though, recently. Over his last 30 days, he's been pretty solid. What is Finnegan's value? I can't remember. 0.3. You need bullpen help. That would be a cheap way to get it. You give up 5 pieces here for Mackenzie Gore and Kyle Finnegan. 2.5 years of Gore, half a season of Finnegan. You give up probably your top 3 of your top 5. And then once the midseason updates come, you're probably giving up 4 of your top 5 with Wiggins. That'd be a tough trade to make, but if you're all in like the Cubs are, that's probably what it would take to get Mackenzie Gore. That's close. Harley, welcome in. Appreciate you joining us. If you guys are joining us for the first time, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up at the bottom of the video. It goes a long way to helping us out. Doing our afternoon live, talking about all the latest rumors around MLB trade deadline. You think the Rangers go after Bednar instead of the other closers on the market? I do. They've been connected to Bednar for basically 2+ years at this point. His value's about right. The one thing that he does bring is a good strikeout arm, and that's what the Rangers are looking for in addition to a closer. And Bednar is having a very solid season after struggling before he was sent down to AAA to kind of fix things. Came back up and has been lights out ever since. I think he'd fit very well into the bullpen. Rangers just activated John Gray off the IL for the first time this season and designated Luke Jackson for assignment. I would not be surprised if Jackson ends up getting traded to another team, but we shall see. Do you think we can hold on to Walcott and still get Bednar? Absolutely. Bednar's only a value around 6. Walcott, meanwhile, is 10 times the value of Bednar. I think you could probably do Osuna and maybe another lower level offensive piece in exchange for Bednar and get that deal done. Osuna, I think, is borderline top 10 prospect right now for the Rangers. But he would immediately go into the outfield for the Pirates and help them offensively, which is really what Ben Cherington needs to do in Pittsburgh in order to save his job before we get to the winter meetings. I'm going to go ahead and validate this trade. It's a fair trade, which tells me we're probably not throwing enough in here as far as value. But I think Wiggins is so far undervalued. Honestly, you could probably flip his value, or you could even put him on par with Casey as far as a piece. Maybe just a step below that. So while it's a fair trade here, I think it's actually a little bit more than that. But I'm going to go ahead and post it anyway. 5 for 2. A lot like what we saw for Cole Hamels back in the day. Cliff Lee, 5 prospects for 2. Basically, you get the extra couple lower level pieces in order to get the relief pitcher attached to the starting pitcher. Mark Lowe was the secondary piece in that Cliff Lee deal that went to Texas. And then Jake Diekman was in the secondary piece that went along with Cole Hamels. That would make some sense. Let's go ahead and check out MLB trade rumors, see if anything else is popping off at the moment. Guardians are at least open to offers on Shane Bieber. They've been discussing Stephen Kwan as well. There's a couple of teams that I think would make a lot of sense for Kwan. And let's go ahead and start with one of those. I've seen his name pop up this morning quite a bit as well. The Dodgers, to me, are the team that screams for Kwan here. His availability, staying healthy, and the ability to produce in that lineup, lengthen out that lineup. They are a World Series favorite team. Even with the injuries, I still think that they're right there. I think they'll get healthy enough by the end of the season to where they should still be considered the favorite. Now, of course, will any of us be rooting for them that aren't Dodgers fans? Probably not. It's good to have a villain in baseball again. But we'll see who they add here at the deadline. But if they did go this direction, they want to bring in Stephen Kwan. He's got a couple of years of control left as well. You're going to have to start, I would imagine, with Zaire Hope or Jose De Paula. I would guess Jose De Paula probably be the bigger piece for them. Sheehan would be an interesting piece, but I think they'd rather go Sirota. Then you get to 51. You're a little bit rich here. Remember what they did a few years ago with Trey Turner and Max Scherzer? Very rarely do we ever see teams stack assets, valuable assets. This could be one such deal. Guardians are having a nice season this year. To give up on it, or to at least give up a real chance to win the division, but may still be able to make the postseason as a wild card, you could do Clase in this deal as well. Now that would command a hefty, hefty return. I think Jackson Ferris would probably have to be included in this deal. Stone probably goes in this deal as well. And Lindsay probably goes in this deal as well. How many pieces is that? 5? That's a pretty great deal. I'm not sure the Guardians say yes to it. If I'm the Dodgers, I've kept Zaire Hope. I still have plenty of prospects. I can buy even more as well. It's what they've been really good at doing. But you get Stephen Kwan, Emmanuel Clase to immediately help out the Dodgers right now. But you're giving up some major pieces to the Guardians in this deal. That would almost make it worth it right there. I think if you finish off this deal with another small piece, Tunic maybe, Kendall George, just seeing if any names just stick out to me. Hassan Kim. A major league piece that could take over out there. That actually wouldn't be a bad option. Take the spot of Kwan in the lineup. I don't think they would do it though for him. You could do, I know where I'm going to go. Majors. Where is he? Bobby Miller. Injury, of course. Seen as a 0 right now because of the injury on the market. But he would certainly increase the value of this trade for the future of the Guardians. They're no stranger to having injured pitchers on their roster. But look at this return. If you're the Guardians, that would be a really tough deal to turn down, even considering you're trying to make the postseason this year. If the Dodgers threw this offer on the table, that'd be a really difficult offer to turn down. Now, if they did it for Cade Smith instead of Class A, I think you say yes instantly. But with Class A in here, I think it's at least a conversation before you insta say yes. Kwan is a really good piece for them. Absolutely. It would suck to lose him. And you're not getting anybody in this trade that immediately fills his spot in your lineup either. So you're literally decreasing your abilities offensively, which are already limited. You're taking a closer who some have speculated for the last 2 seasons was reasonably available, or at least would become available soon. This seems like about the right time given his value on the market and the dearth of elite closers in the game. That's a difference-making piece for the Dodgers. You do get a starting pitcher to go into your rotation with Luis Ortiz's issues in Gavin Stone, so that's the piece that is upgrading your staff. And you already made a great trade this past offseason, trading Naylor and getting Ciccione. I think they got another piece out of it as well. But that would be a really great deal for the Guardians, and it'd be really difficult for them to turn down. Validate it, fair trade, post it. I'm curious to see what people think in both sides of that one. Not saying it would ever happen, but I am saying it would be hard for the Guardians to turn down, and it would certainly solve some of the issues the Dodgers are having right now. Baseball purist, welcome in. Appreciate you joining us this afternoon. Is Josh Young on the market? No, I don't think he is. I think the only way he would be moved is if the Rangers somehow added an Austin Riley type or a Manny Machado. That's unlikely to happen, very, very unlikely to happen. And so I think he's going to be staying in Texas at least until the offseason. Now, once we get to the offseason, I'm sure the Rangers will make some type of run at Kyle Tucker. I'm sure they'll at least knock on the door of Alex Bregman and try to add one of those elite hitters. Both former Astros, so that would have all kinds of ramifications within the division, of course. But if they did sign, say, Alex Bregman to a deal, I think Josh Young's spot on the roster would become very tenuous. If they signed a Kyle Tucker, I think it would be less tenuous because, again, they would still need a third baseman. But if they signed Kyle Tucker, if they wanted to, they could move Smith over to third base permanently if Young wasn't cutting it at third base. But is he on the market right now? I would say resoundingly no. The only way he would be in a deal, I would imagine, is as a ballast in a trade for a Austin Riley type, which, again, I don't think is going to happen. But look at this trade here. Let us know in the comments. If you're the Dodgers, give us a thumbs up if you think that's a deal you would do if you're the Dodgers. Got about 20 of you guys with us right now. Let us see. How many of you guys do that deal if you're the Dodgers? You're giving up 4 prospects that are having really strong years, an injured starting pitcher in Bobby Miller, and Gavin Stone, somebody who's taken some good innings for you if you're the Dodgers. In exchange, you're solving your needs in the outfield, getting a high on-base guy as well in Stephen Kwan. You're solving the 9th inning role, which you thought you had solved with 5 different closers on your roster at one point. You're still getting Brusdar Graterol back at some point here, but Class A probably takes over in the 9th inning over any of those options. Let's do another one for Stephen Kwan. Another team that's at least kicked the tires on him is the Seattle Mariners. Mariners are having a good season from Canzone and Riley, kind of a combo out there, but Kwan would certainly upgrade their offense for them. Now, if you put one of those pieces at DH, lengthen out the lineup a little bit, I think they'd rather have a first baseman anyway. But if Kwan was the option here at the deadline, that they chose, hey, we got 2 years left on his deal, he's worth making the addition for, what would it cost, and what would make it worth it for the Guardians to do this deal? Now, I don't think you'd have to get Class A in this deal as well, because again, Mariners have a pretty solid bullpen. I don't think they're trading you any of these elite starters, but I think the trade would probably have to start with Lazaro Montez if you're adding an outfielder. Immediately becomes an outfielder of the future for the Guardians. That's 24. Now we need about another 24 to 28 to make this deal worth it. You could do Cole Young, but he's on the active roster right now. I doubt that would happen. Farmelo would be a very interesting piece, but I think they would want to have multiple bites at the apple here. So I think they would go a little bit cheaper. Maybe a Bryce Miller, or better yet, a Logan Evans to the Guardians. You send Bautista to the Guardians, and Pete, I think, will probably be a little over here, but let's see what that does. Actually, it's pretty close. Kwan in exchange for Montez, one of your top 10 prospects. Evans, who's ready to go into rotation right now. Bautista and Pete, who are very far away from the major league level. But the Guardians, I think that's fair equity there. You do get a starter like you do in the other deal with Stone. And you get to keep Clase if you're the Guardians instead of trading him in that deal with the Dodgers. I don't know. This deal I'd still put on hold. I wouldn't necessarily say yes to it. But it'd be very interesting. If Kwan gets traded to Seattle, then Seattle would be my World Series champ favorite in 25. For the Mariners, I think this was kind of the finishing piece for their offense, which is why I'd be willing to overpay a little bit here. Arif, appreciate you joining us. Okay, would you do a trade both Blue Jays prospects for players mentioned? I can do that for you. Right now, there's no stud starters out there. There's no studs like, Max Scherzer at his prime, or in his prime, or Cole Hamels in his prime, Cliff Lee in his prime, years like that. But, there's still some really good options out there. Guys that are middle of the rotation starters, controllable assets, guys that are borderline aces. Reef, if you just joined us anyway, we did do a Blue Jays trade a few minutes ago, sending Dylan Cease to the Blue Jays for Dalton Varsho and a couple of prospects there, a couple of starting pitcher prospects as well. But I'm going to go ahead and post this one, and then we'll do another trade for you. Go back to the simulator. Blue Jays. Say they are the team that decides to go after a controllable starter. Mitch Keller, to me, is the piece I think would be the one that we would do. We talked about this last night. The trade that we came up with was sending Keller to the Blue Jays for 2 prospects, Namala, Yasevich, and again, you're going to have to overpay because the control on the deal, the high price for starting pitching. But I think I've already posted that one a couple of times. Would you do that deal if you're the Blue Jays? They traded Michael Young for Esteban Loaiza. I remember that trade, yes. Baseball purist, do the Tigers' the spiral down concern you? Absolutely. I mean, I'm going to go ahead and pull up their schedule real quick. Tigers. Well, let's see here. Let's go teams. Detroit, open a new tab, schedule, and let's just look at their month of July, right? Win-loss, 1-1, loss, win, win. Not a bad first week of the month, okay? You win 3 more games, 6, 7, 8, win, 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 and then here's where the losses begin before the break. Rays. Mariners. Okay, you caught the Mariners when they were hot, but look at the scores. 7 runs given up, 12 runs given up, 15 runs given up, 8 runs given up. The pitching was starting to fail them. That's 4 straight games. You go through the All-Star break. Hey, the bats are going to be a little slow coming out of the break. But you lose a couple on the road to the Rangers. Rangers are getting hot. Okay. Skubal pitches well, but your offense continues to languish. But you win against the Rangers there to at least give your first win after the break. And then you get swept by the Pittsburgh freaking Pirates. And I don't want to hear, oh, we got Paul Skeens. Oh, we got Mitch Keller. You got Bailey Falter today, and you scored 1 run. But it was an afternoon game. Those are always fluky. Sure. But you're supposed to be the best team in the American League, and we're starting to see the cracks, the flaws in the system there. The offense playing a little bit above its head probably in the first half. We thought that offense would come back down to earth. Evidence would say they've scored how many runs so far in 6 games? 1, 2, 3, 8, 9 runs. That's not enough. That's not getting it done. Look how many runs they've given up to the Pirates. 8 runs, 6 runs, 3 runs, getting shut out 2 times already in 6 games. And now it doesn't get easier. You get the Blue Jays for 4, and then you get the Diamondbacks. Diamondbacks may or may not be buying or selling at the deadline. People trying to prove how good they are in order to increase their trade value. Tigers are certainly in a rough spot right now. They need to figure out how to improve their offense for number 1. Get somebody in there that's platoon averse, that can be in there versus righties and lefties. I like A.J. Hinch as a manager. I think he does a great job managing that team like it's Game 7, the full platoons. The heck with what you've done in the game already. There's a lefty on the mound. You're coming out left-handed hitter. My righty's going to go in there because he has much better numbers against the lefty because every single at-bat matters. And that's how Hinch has been managing. But so far, in the second half, that same strategy that worked so well in the first half is failing them so far here in the second. Honestly, you're getting the Blue Jays for 4 here. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they lost 3 out of those 4. And then you're talking about the Guardians, even if they did sell Kwan here at the deadline, breathing down their necks by the time the trade deadline actually does get here. Problem is Vladdy not coming up when they need him. Well, I think the Blue Jays are good enough right now. They've been the best team in baseball for basically the last 50, 55 games now. They're still a really good team. Do I think I fear them in the postseason? No. There's nobody that I think they would add that would make me fear them in the postseason. But I do think they should add around the periphery of this team here wherever they can. Adding another bat, adding a bullpen arm. If they can add an ace in front of that rotation like a Dylan Cease, I think that would be a good option for them. Of course, the future unknown around Bo Bichette. Vladdy not performing right now. He will. We're talking middle of July. He usually is a pretty clutch bat for them. Who do they have to replace him with if they lose Bo Bichette? I'm not convinced they lose Bo Bichette. I'm not sure who's going to overpay Bo Bichette for him to leave Toronto. Now, if you're making the argument he wants out of Toronto and wants to take the same or comparable deal somewhere else, tax situation, U.S., etc., I could hear you on those arguments, but I still am of the belief that Bichette is going to sign sometime before the end of the season an extension. If he doesn't sign an extension, I have every reason to believe that Toronto will extend him a comparable offer and he'll end up staying there. But if he does end up leaving, I'm not really sure they have anybody besides Martinez who could really take that spot currently on the roster. But there's going to be a couple of shortstops that they could pursue in free agency that might not be as good as Bo Bichette, but could certainly fill the shoes for a year or two until one of their prospects does get to the big show. But that was the trade we came up with last night to kind of help out the Blue Jays in their rotation. Got another video coming out here in about 50 minutes anyway. Be sure to check that one out. The Houston Astros and the loss of Isaac Paredes for a long-term injury. Joe Espada saying he's going to be out for a significant period of time. All right, let's go ahead and clear the trade. How many hours are you dedicating to MLB trade deadline? Every day, I'm probably doing, between videos and lives, I'm probably doing, I don't know, 2.5, 3 hours a day, sometimes more. Today, I'm probably going to dedicate, I don't know, probably 5, 6 hours to it. And then on trade deadline day, I'll be live from about 8-ish in the morning. So we'll probably do a little bit of research before the show starts. And so probably run through probably about 5-ish my time. So it'll be a full shift. We're talking probably 10 hours that day. That's the problem with selling the farm, getting knocked out of the playoffs. Well, I mean, the front office is trying to save their job there in Toronto right now. Front office is all about getting to the postseason and winning around. If they get to the postseason, I think their jobs are still somewhat in jeopardy. But if they win around, I think they get the long-term deals that they're looking for, and then they spend in free agency. I think they solved some of their issues with recruiting free agents by getting the deal done with Vladdy. Now they have some long-term security with what's going to be there going forward. They have Santander, of course, who currently is injured. Hopefully he'll be back sooner rather than later. 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate you. Let's do another deal. But before we do, let's go ahead and double check Twitter, see if anything else is going through. I'm kind of surprised we haven't seen any major trades as of yet. It does sound like the Marcell Ozuna deals are starting to percolate. That's crazy. Perfect 500 in all. Wow. That's crazy. Nick Kurtz, by the way, absolute stud for the A's. Like, he looks so good, and he's going to get even bigger and stronger here. Like, you look at the best players in the game, Judge, Ohtani, Soto to a certain degree. I think Kurtz could be on that level inside of a year and a half. If he keeps going at this rate, he is that good in Oakland. Or, well, the Athletics of Sacramento, future Las Vegas team. They do have a Las Vegas patch now on their arm, so why don't they just go ahead and name them the Las Vegas A's and just get it over with? Of course, they are thinking about changing the team name as well. Give something more Vegas-oriented. But he is an absolute stud. Mariners showing interest in Ryan McMahon. Again, any and all offensive pieces for the Mariners you got to consider. Eugenio Suarez, of course. Lineup for the Rangers. Hellman batting leadoff again. So it does sound like Eovaldi is not going to go today. He was expected to be the starter today if he was healthy and right, but this makes the second time in 4 days they've scratched him. Although they didn't necessarily formally announce him as the starter, they said it was either going to be Corbin or Eovaldi today. This was supposed to be Corbin's start, but because Eovaldi didn't go on Sunday, they thought maybe they'd put Eovaldi here. Very, very, very interesting. I don't think that Eovaldi's going to miss a lot of time here, but I would go ahead and put him on the IL, put him retroactive to a certain date, call up somebody from the minors to give you some more pitching in the depth there as well. And then when Eovaldi is ready to go, probably by the weekend, you call him up at that point. Because again, the retroactive date, you could put those. I think they retroactively did it to before the All-Star break, so he'd basically be ready to come off the IL by the end of the week. Cody Freeman in there. Higashioka had a tight hamstring in the game last night. Maybe you call up a catcher in that spot. Let Higashioka have a couple of days off so he doesn't have a long-term injury. But Duran needs to have a come to Jesus meeting with the Rangers brass and figure out his long-term future there. This year's look like a seller market? Absolutely. Stanley, welcome in. Do the Mets Vientos in a package for the Pirates Keller? We can do that one. Phillies and Padres among the teams interested in Kwan. Padres just don't make sense. They don't have the pieces for it. Phillies, because they need a center fielder. Kwan is more of a left fielder, but kind of suppose in a pinch could handle center. Looks like Haggerty's coming off the IL in a couple of days. Okay, let's go ahead and do your trade first. Pirates and Mets. You're saying Vientos as the primary piece going back the other way? Sorry, trying to keep up with these notifications. Do you like the Oakland A's rebranding themselves as the Las Vegas Dark Knights? Ooh, that'd be kind of cool. You got the Golden Knights in hockey. The Dark Knights would be pretty cool for baseball. I would go for that. Why not trade Bichette, Varsho, and Bassett for good pieces? Bassett, I'm not sure you're going to get too much for him. Varsho, same kind of a thing. Bichette would be a nice piece, but you're looking to win this year. Let's go ahead and do Stanley's idea here. Mitch Keller, you're saying Vientos as the primary piece the other direction. I'm not sure the Mets would be willing to do that because he's a major league piece already. You're looking for offensive pieces, though, to help out right now in Pittsburgh. He does kind of seem like a Pittsburgh Pirate type of a player. Beatty could be another one. I think Clifford. Gilbert. Actually, where's Acuna now? That's another one whose value has really fallen off. Boston Barrow. Let's do that one instead. You're still liked, even if you did Vientos as the primary piece. And I don't think you're doing more than 3. So you have to include a little bit more here. We need about a $12 to $13 million piece around the same valuation of Vientos. 12 to 13. Reimer. Beatty. I don't think they'd do both Vientos and Beatty, but maybe Reimer. And then that would give them the flexibility to move on from Cabrian Hayes, maybe to the Yankees. What do you guys think? I'll go ahead and validate it and post it so we can get some comments anyway from the Mets faithful on here. To me, he's not an ace, but he's a really good number 3, a solid number 2. But to me, they need an ace more than anything else. So while this does help the Mets, I'm not sure it helps them in the way that they need it the most, which is a guy to take the ball in Game 1 of a postseason series against the Dodgers, against the Phillies. You need somebody to compete with that. And Keller, while good, would always be seen as the second best pitcher in that matchup versus Ohtani, Yamamoto, Glasnow. Keller would be seen as less than. Snell, of course, health big factor there for the Dodgers. For the Phillies, you'd say Wheeler for sure, Sanchez for sure. Suarez would be close. Luzardo, you'd say Keller was better. Ryan Clifford has Pete Alonso insurance. I don't believe Pete is coming back. He's having a great year. His number is going up. Be live with you guys for another 20 minutes or so. If you guys want me to do a trade for you guys, go ahead and send it to us. And then we'll do another live this evening around 9:30, 9:45. Pretty much right after the conclusion of the Rangers game is when we'll go live. Let's check out some of the scores real quick. Because I was watching the Mariners game before we came live. Rockies, basically finishing off the Cardinals' hopes for the postseason right now. What a job by the Rockies the last two series they've had. Twins basically take their hearts and stomp on them. Cardinals, same thing right now. Look at the Brewers. They opened up a can late in that game. 17 hits. Wow. 3 crooked numbers on the scoreboard. That race in the AL wildcard race is getting so close right now. Diamondbacks had a 1-0 lead, I remember, in this game, and then a 2-run 6th inning. How did that happen for the Astros? Ketel Marte got the home run. Bryce Matthews coming through again on an error. Ouch. And then a wild pitch and allowed another run to score. Ouch. Grichuk, McCann, and Alexander coming up in the bottom of the 7th. That's a tough way to lose a game if the Diamondbacks end up losing that one, but that's how you kind of know if you're a competitive, team that's going to make a wild card run or not. Why would GMs pay Pete Alonso? They have seen Ryan Howard, Chris Davis, Prince Fielder sharply decline after 30 years old. Well, I'm not saying they'll pay him like, they used to back in the Albert Pujols 10 years, $300 or $225 million or whatever he got from the Angels. The Prince Fielder 8-year deal that he got from the Detroit Tigers and then subsequently flipped to the Rangers when they needed a bat. If you give Pete Alonso, say, 3 to 5 years fully guaranteed, maybe 5 years at the upper end, I think that still would be a palatable deal for a team. And we're not talking about $30 million here for Pete Alonso. I think if he does get a 5-year deal, we're probably talking in the neighborhood of, say, 110, 125 million max. That's around 25 on the high end there. That's a palatable number, especially for the Mets. I mean, we always say money's not an issue for a guy like Steve Cohen, but money always matters. That's how they got to accumulate so much money. But I think Cohen would be willing to pay the tax to be able to bring back Pete Alonso if he has this kind of a year. I think it'd be hard-pressed to see him go out the door when there's not an option on the open market to fill his shoes immediately. And the guys that you're hoping have nice years this year to kind of prove themselves at the big league level, we're talking about, Beatty, Vientos, Acuna, Mauricio, those types of players. They haven't quite lived up to that, center or the middle of the order type of a bat that you need if you're going to let Pete Alonso go. So I would be looking to re-sign Pete Alonso and figure things out thereafter. 1 out already in the bottom of the 7th. This game moving quickly there. All right, let's kind of run through some of the scores. Watched a lot of the games out there today. Twins tied it up against the Dodgers. Ohtani has homered for the 5th straight game. Career high there. Some of the finals we already saw today. Shutout anyway. The Nationals get shut out 5-0 by the Reds. Lodolo pitching very well today. Marlins once again beating the Padres. Alcantara lowers his ERA from 7.19 before from the start down to 6.66. Yes, that's right. That's his ERA as we go to the trade deadline. Dylan Cease, another loss for the Padres, but he pitched well in that game. A 4.5 ERA though. Dylan Cease has had a lot of bad luck this year, and his ERA, his Sierra rating anyway, is around 3.5. He is a very good starter still. It's just a matter of bad luck for him and the Padres there. Giants drum the Braves once again, 9-3, and Verlander gets his first victory of the season in a Giants uniform. We talked about the Tigers and their struggles, losing 6-1 today. They called up rookie Melton in that deal earlier, and ultimately lost that game as well. The Mets have gone final 6-3 there. Cubs lose at home again to the Royals, 8-4. And then, of course, the Rockies game just goes final 6-0. All right. Only a handful of games left today. Nothing in the 9 o'clock hour or 8 o'clock hour. The latest game of the day is actually the Rangers at home against Oakland. They do struggle quite a bit against J.P. Sears. So I think this will be a very telling situation for the Rangers in their right-handed bats. If they can produce against a guy they've routinely struggled against from the left side in J.P. Sears, his ERA of 5.13 tells you he's not an overly great pitcher, and he is available here at the deadline. But if you're struggling against guys like him, what makes you think you're going to be any good against guys like Tarek Skubal, who they basically were I don't know, a limp noodle against on Sunday. This offense needs to start producing against left-handed pitchers, and against a guy that they've routinely struggled against, is going to be a real test for the Rangers bats today. All right, see, the Brewers don't add to their total, still 10-2 as they go to the bottom of the 8th. Diamondbacks scoreless in their half of the 7th. They go to the 8th. These games are getting close to the end here. Glass now still rolling out there for the Dodgers. They really needed some starting pitching back, and good to have Glass now back. I think this is his second or third start since coming off of the IL. Other games to look at this evening. Fried versus Bassett. Yankees versus Blue Jays is going to be a gem. Be sure to catch that one. Red Sox and Phillies. Going to be a really good pitching matchup between Luzardo, who's figured things out on the pitching side compared to his days in Miami. Giolito certainly been one of the best pitchers for the Red Sox for the past couple of months here. He says he does not want to be traded because he sees himself, or there was some rumors anyway percolating that he was going to be the odd man out of that rotation. I don't see that happening anyway. But the Red Sox have certainly had their fair share of struggles out of the break as well. They're currently only, I believe, a half game up on the Rays, and that's the last game there. Taj Bradley going for the Rays against the White Sox, looking to win this series there this evening. All right, appreciate you guys joining us. Thank you guys for subscribing, liking the video. Let's go ahead and make a few more trades before we wrap up. For our afternoon show, we'll be back around 9 o'clock or 9:45 this evening when the Rangers game does conclude, and we will have updated power rankings for you a week out until the trade deadline. So be sure to join us on trade deadline day. We'll be live literally from 8 a.m. through probably 5 in the afternoon. We'll be bringing you every single update that we possibly can. Got an update coming out about the Astros and the Paredes injury situation coming out at about 5:15 Central. And then we'll have another video later on this evening detailing the Dylan Cease rumors as well. Let's check out X and see if anything is going on there. Not too much there. Lists, baseball. Ichiro going into the Hall of Fame this weekend. CC Sabathia, Billy Wagner. Everybody forgets about the Hall of Fame weekend with trade deadline season, but Ichiro, one of a kind. Really excited to see him get his due. Read an article where he visited the Hall of Fame 7 times in his baseball career, trying to pull things from players he viewed as similar to him. Man understood baseball history, that's for sure. Honestly, I still think Ichiro could go out there and produce. Everybody says that, but you watch him go out there and hit, do a batting practice. He still throws like he's a pitcher as well or on the field anyway, before games. Man still has it. CC Sabathia, meanwhile, I think he's probably more of an old-timers game participant. Ichiro, I think, could actually still play in the majors if he wanted to. Not saying he could play every day, because I think age really was starting to catch up to him towards the end as far as the availability. Only went on the IL once in his entire career, and that was towards the end of his career. I think that's part of the reason why he decided to hang it up when he did. But I think if, for instance, say you're in the 9th inning and you need somebody to get a base hit to knock in a run from third base, I think Ichiro could still get it done. Even against the best in the game, he is that good. Billy Wagner doesn't get the hubbub that a lot of other closers have in the past because of the lack of innings, postseason struggles. But as far as how dominant he was out for out, very few were at the caliber of Billy Wagner. And then, of course, all you guys know about CC Sabathia, his time with the Yankees, the Indians, now the Guardians, Brewers as well. Just a force when you get to October as well. And proved it in the biggest market in the world in New York. Hell of a career. All right, let's go ahead and do a couple more trades here. Let's see, what's a name that's been out there on the market? I was listening this morning to Foul Territory about Adley Rutschman and the Orioles, and while I don't think it would happen during the season this year, there is reasonable conversation to be had around the future of Adley Rutschman with the Orioles. His offense is nowhere near what it was, say, a year and a half ago. Part of that has been sapped due to injury, absolutely. But if you don't believe the offense is coming back, if you're Baltimore, you have options already in-house that are better than Adley Rutschman to go with if you really doubt the offense that much. And there are teams that need catching help. So in the offseason, you decide you're going to go young at catcher. Do you trade Adley Rutschman? Trade him to the Padres? I think this is a trade that could happen. And if you did, what would you give up? What would you want in return? Like I said, the Padres don't have a whole lot to trade. You could do probably 3 or 4 smaller pieces here. So you do Mayfield, gets you to 5. You need 10 more. So you could do 3 of these guys in this $3 million range. Restock the farm system if you're the Orioles that way. The Padres just have so little as far as trade assets right now. Now, of course, you're going to infuse some of the draft picks that they brought in and the international class that they have as well. They'll have more prospects to deal, but right now, just so few pieces that they can move that have real value. But in the offseason, I think this is a trade that we could see. Maybe not with these specific pieces going back to the Orioles, but something similar here. If you believe Basayo's ready to take the mantle there behind the plate, why not? Especially if he's only going to hit around, what, 230, 220? Now, if he was still hitting like 280 and looked like an MVP candidate, like, hold on, let's keep Adley Rutschman here. Even if he doesn't, fit behind the plate because you have some talent coming, move him over to DH, put him over at first base, but keep that bat in the lineup. But the offense hasn't been there for Rutschman, so we'll see how he comes back from injury. He is expected back before the end of the season. If his offense still is lagging behind, maybe there are doubts that creep into the mind of the front office there for the Orioles. And a trade like this becomes more feasible. Let's go ahead and clear it out, though. Let's do another trade. The Rays, to me, scream a team that has pieces to trade. They have kind of redundancy at a lot of positions here. And with the injury now to McClanahan, I'm not sure. Let me see if they have a report on him. I'm not sure if the MLB.com will have it or not, but I want to say he had a pulled muscle or so, something like that. Yeah, come on. There we go. Bicep soreness. He was scheduled to make his 4th start, 3rd with AAA. Could resume throwing in 2 to 3 days, so it's a short-term injury. This is a good post here. McClanahan's actually responding to Rays fans. I know you're frustrated. I am too. The process has been anything but easy coming back from a completely freak injury. I want you to know that I'm busting my rear and doing everything I can to be back to who you know I can be and what I know I can be. So if he had bicep soreness, that probably means he's going to need, even if he's down for 2 or 3 days, I would say he needs at least 2 more rehab starts. So he comes back after the deadline, maybe mid-August at the latest. But getting back to the trade here, there's a lot of redundancy. Like Jonathan Aranda at first base, 4 years of control left after this season. And with demand for hitters right now, teams just absolutely salivating for anybody who can do anything offensively. A guy like Yandy Diaz would certainly command a decent return in trade. The team that we came up with yesterday, that we were working on the trade for, was the Texas Rangers. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger of a trade, though. So Diaz goes to Texas. The piece that kind of fits perfectly for the Rays, to me, is going to be Cole Drake. Now then you throw in a lower level offensive piece just to round out the deal, and there's your trade. Kind of a straight up deal. Rangers get a first baseman for this year and next, solves their on-base issues, hits for average, all those kinds of things. And he's been one of the hottest hitters in baseball for basically the last month and a half. Rays get a starting pitcher that probably goes into the starting rotation next year, takes over in that rotation for Zach Little, since he's a free agent. And there's still no promises that the Rays don't move on from Taj Bradley or Drew Rasmussen. I think they'll try to move on from Little for sure here at the deadline. And I think there's an outside chance that they move one of those controllable starters, since prices are just so high for controllable starters, they could get a king's ransom in return. But like I said, let's expand this trade idea to make it a little bit bigger. Say the Rangers want to do all their shopping in one spot here. What else could they get that would help out their roster? Well, you could go Brendan Lau, but he's just got on the injured list. He's not going to be back until mid-August. That's out of the question. I don't think you're getting one of those controllable starters. I don't think they would make the rotation right now for the Rangers anyway. You're not starting them in front of Eovaldi or DeGrom. I think you'd rather start your own young guys in Leiter and Kumar Rocker, who are starting to show real strides, and Corbin's been nothing but nails for you this season. He's on a $1 million contract. You're right up against it tax-wise anyway, so you don't need to make necessarily an addition to the rotation like that. Now, if there's a better piece, that's a different question, but what else could you go for here? Now, I'm not necessarily a fan of this, but Pete Fairbanks kind of fits the same mold of what David Bednar does from the Pittsburgh Pirates. Gives you a solid closer option who's on a good year this year, has 1 year left of control, and would certainly help out in a bullpen that needs somebody with experience closing games. Now, his value is around 5.3. This deal gets a little bit more expensive for you. Dreiling could be one of the pieces that you put in this deal. Osuna could be one of the pieces. I think you'd probably have to put in another young starting pitcher into this deal. So let's say you put Davio in this deal. I think you're close here, but I still think you need one more piece. Maybe you send Jake Berger back the other way. Not that they need a first baseman, but they've needed some power in that lineup. So that would be the power going back to the Rays. Rangers still need power as well. That's why they acquired Jake Berger in the first place. He hasn't quite lived up to it, but it's kind of a, balancing piece in this deal, giving them a major league option to stay competitive in the wild card race. This would be a trade that would make sense for both sides. You get 2 really strong pitching prospects and a piece to take over for Yandy Diaz. Now, the bullpen has been a bit of a mystery for the Rays here. Would they be willing to move on from a Pete Fairbanks? That's a different question altogether. But that's not a bad deal. Cease for Kwan. We tried doing that one earlier, Cobra. Cease's value is around, 10.7. Kwan is around 43, 47. There's nothing that the Padres could include besides maybe an Ethan Salas that would make the deal even close. Especially when you consider Kwan's trade value. And if he's truly on the market and is really out there, I think the Dodgers are going to be right there and have so much more and so much better assets to trade than the Padres. I just don't see it very likely at all. Fairbanks back to the Rangers would be cool. I would say so, but if I'm the Rangers, I'd prefer Duran, I'd prefer Bednar, I'd prefer Clase before I go to Fairbanks. I may even prefer Kenley Jansen because of the experience, but I think Fairbanks is having a better year if I remember correctly. All right, it's almost 5 o'clock. Appreciate you guys joining us. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe. Join us this evening around 9:45 as we will update our MLB power rankings. We'll get into a lot of the trade rumors that have happened in our evening hours and kind of update you guys on what's happening around the world of baseball. But thank you guys for joining us for our afternoon edition of MLB Hot Stove Daily. Hit that like, subscribe, means a lot to us if you'd go ahead and do that. And got another video coming out here in about 15 minutes about the Houston Astros. And the injury to Isaac Paredes, how they're holding on. They've done a great job weathering the storm so far, but how long are they going to be without him? Got that update in the video as well. Can they weather the storm that long without him? And Yordan Alvarez expected to still be out for a little bit longer here as well. And no end in sight anyway as far as the injuries for the Astros. But somehow they've found a way to keep winning games. Let's check in on the scoreboard before we head out and see if they're still winning that one. 3-2. Suarez is up to bat. Uh-oh. 1-2 on Suarez. This is probably going to be a strikeout. No, another ball. We'll stick through this half inning here and kind of go with it here. I think if the Diamondbacks lose this game, they certainly will be sellers, even more so than I think they already will be. Might even trade some pieces that we're not talking about. 3-2 now. On deck is Josh Naylor, Suarez and Naylor, and Grichuk all 0 for 3. Naylor's seen his batting average drop a little bit here, but he's had a nice average year all season long. He's due for a good hit. Suarez has had a lot of power the last week or so since the All-Star break. He's up to, I believe, 36 home runs so far on the year. Tied for second. And he takes a walk. Wow, 3 straight balls, and now it's Josh Naylor with 1 out. Fly ball into the outfield ties the game. Base hit puts the Diamondbacks in front. Marte on third, Carroll on second, Suarez on first. Got to be a pitching change, you'd think, right? Although it is left on left, maybe just a mound visit. But doesn't look like it. Here we go. Big moment here. One run is already in the inning. Runs are scored. What is it, a bloop? Yeah. Bloop base hit and the bases stay loaded, and now it's tied 3-3. Wow. Kind of like how they have this set up here. The little, the player's motion on there, how they got the player tracking data. That's really cool on the side screen over here. Grichuk is up now with a chance to bust the game open, put him in front. I'm pretty sure that's going to go as a blown save for Souza. Grichuk usually is really good against lefties too. But he's 0 for 3 with a strikeout so far today. What does he do? Ground into a double play? Yep. Dang. They go tied to the 9th. Wow. Couldn't get the ball in the air. Mm. All right, let's go ahead and go back to our scores and just kind of wrap up for our show. It never updates properly. All right, 3-3 Astros. Diamondbacks headed to the 9th. Brewers 10-2 over the Mariners. Looks like that one's about to go final here shortly. Dodgers just took the lead over the Twins. Looks like the bases are loaded in the bottom of the 7th, so that game looks like it's about to be busted open. You want Bednar also, Harley? I agree. He's the closer I want. Low cost, big impact, and he's signed for another year. Salary isn't exorbitant, so you still have money to spend in free agency next year. And you don't have to go after a closer in free agency either. But if you want to improve that bullpen and add another closer to that mix, put him in there as an 8th inning setup guy, as an elite option as an 8th inning setup guy, you could do that. Duran would be my second choice. Honestly, I'd prefer both. My 1A option is getting both of those guys. My 1B is Bednar. C would be just straight Duran. Clase I just think is too expensive. Unless you're also getting Kwan in that deal, which then you're having to do some really big trades with, Walcott or Langford or, some iteration of that deal. That doesn't make much sense. So I would just rather do Bednar straight up. Clean and simple, upgrade your bullpen, and then try to add a bat like Diaz that we just did here a minute ago. All right, appreciate you guys joining us. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. Watch our video here in about 10 minutes coming out about the Houston Astros and the injury to Isaac Paredes. Thank you guys for supporting the channel. Hitting that like and subscribe means a lot to us. We'll see you guys tonight at 9:45 for MLB Power Rankings and Trade Rumor Show. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you guys later.